What's up?
So there
What's
are
up?
there are a couple stories. I would, if we could, I because I have this. I would like us to check out this clip and get yours, and maybe we could even peek into the chat for their thoughts on this. I listen, and I admit it. I'm not even proud, but I admit that some of this is just petty. I don't even watch Breaking Points much anymore. And one of the first things I stopped watching whenever I would see them put out their segments was whenever they would do something on race, because I know how much they hate discussions of race, how much they hate what they dismiss as sort of, conservative identity politics.
So
And they
Jared,
would
I'm
have
sorry. One
no,
moment.
please.
You have to
Sure.
tell me who Breaking Points is. I don't have a clue
Oh,
who you're talking
okay.
about.
So apologies. So Breaking Points is the show, as you'll see just in a second, of Cigar and Jetty and Crystal Ball, no relation.
Oh, see, noted. Okay, this is why I don't watch what the fuck you're talking about.
Right.
Continue. Okay, go ahead.
So again, they used to be part of my attempt to get different news sources from the mainstream.
Yeah.
And I did watch when they were on the Hill, and I thought, as just getting some information about the daily stuff, they were all right. But whenever they would talk about race, I would start dipping out because their discussions were just painful.
Is Cigar, you have to tell me, is Cigar Southeast Asian? I'm just assuming based off his name.
His background is India, and we did it. And I read a story. I shared a story. I can't remember if it was on Remix or I Mix What I Like, but on this platform, I shared a story a couple of weeks ago that I had found that goes into his background. And one of the reasons why I thought it made sense that he would make these conclusions is that I don't remember the details, but he comes out of a very mainstream institutional with some like state relationship academic background, like a very conservative, like that whole my Indian immigrant family came here and made it big, so should everybody be able to, and with some minor flaws in the system, we can get this right. And all of this discussion of white supremacy, and this is sort of the point of this segment, all of this discussion of any immutable white supremacy is just misguided and fake identity politics. And then they, of course, they focus on the nonprofit world that wants to take advantage of this and get paydays for claiming race is a problem, blah, 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 blah.
Damn, so, Jared, you volunteer to listen to this in your free time?
No, so my point is, that's my point. Whenever particularly they would do something, like if they did a story on, Biden or Nancy Pelosi or the Republicans or, I don't know, something newsworthy, I might watch it. But over time, I haven't, don't watch at all anymore at this point. But I did see, because I guess of the algorithm that still happens, whether you're subscribed or not, that they had a recent interview with Adolph Reed about his new book, which I have read a good portion of because he had been scheduled to come on and do an interview with me, which got canceled, I think, the day of or the night before. And then he pops up and I see him pop up on here. So I was like, I'm petty enough to see what he has to say there that he doesn't want to say here.
So and having plugging his book in this clip? Is he plugging his book in this clip? Okay, because I'm not familiar with his latest book. I don't know what it's titled or what it's about.
The book, and I should have had it right here. I should have had it ready, but maybe by the end of this segment I'll have it. The book is I want to say it's titled The South. As he says in this interview, and I'm not going to play obviously the whole thing, there's really just a clip of this I want to share. He says that it is not a memoir, though it is, it does take excerpts from his life to make points about growing up in the Jim Crow South, and what that does and does not mean in terms of race today. In general, I have often liked his analysis or appreciated his analysis, even if I don't agree with it. But this I found particularly what he says here, and I would like everybody to listen carefully, because Sagar, just listen carefully as he's talking and see if people pick up what I picked up. And we'll just play a little clip of this. He's just been introduced. He's going to respond initially to a question about his book and what he sees his book is saying that the 1619 Project got wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's not exactly, the chronology is quite different, because I actually started working on this around the beginning of the century, around 2002 or 2003. after, I think I mentioned this in the intro too, after discussions with a couple of friends who both have roots in the Deep South, one about a decade younger than I, one about 7 years older, and our recollections around the turn of the current century that our rough age cohort was going to be the last in the United States with any living recollections of what life under Jim Crow was like. So that much preceded the 1619 Project, but the sensibility is different, right? And one of the things that I've been increasingly concerned about in racial discourse in the U.S. in the last decade or so is the proliferation of a notion that nothing has ever changed, right? That white supremacy, and I should put it in scare quotes, is this kind of transhistorical demon, basically, that has the power to do things and to decree things in the world. And of course, that's one of the reasons that some people, myself among them, are less than enthusiastic about the sensibility behind the 1619 Project, right? The sense that the country was founded on slavery, the country was founded on racism, and I think one of the problems that's both a political problem and an interpretive problem is a shift from seeing racial inequality as being rooted in institutions and institutional practices, for instance, like slavery as a labor system, right? Mm-hmm. That's segregation or Jim Crow as a complex of institutions, structures, laws, and other constraints, to seeing it as all about attitude, and so that racism becomes, the answer to the question, right, of racial inequality. And as historian Barbara Fields, my good friend, famously said, the way that people talk about slavery now, and you could say this about the Jim Crow era and sharecropping and whatever else, is that the point of slavery was to produce white supremacy, right? Not to produce cotton, rice.
All right, so I'll stop it there, and folks can check out. And I'm happy to hear any criticisms of my own response if people hear something different in the entire interview. But that's the starting point.
Gerard, I see why he canceled on you, because you was gonna eat his ass up. That's all it is to it. That's why he went on there with the white woman and the person of color, the non-black person of color, because he knew if he came on a platform like BPM and had to go tete-a-tete with Dr. Gerard Ball, his ass ate up. Jared, you would have ate that nigga up in 30 seconds. I see why he ain't come on here.
He's been on, like, I've interviewed him before. So, and I get it. Like, he's been on before. We've disagreed, on before. I don't, so even if we disagreed,
but was he talking crazy like that though?
I don't recall anything to that extent. That really, and as I said, like, this is why, as I mentioned before, this is the book, by the way, The South, Jim Crow and Its Afterlives. And I've said before, this is why he mentions in the book, that he refers to Malcolm X. He just says Malcolm X and other Black race nationalists. And I just, just that one line alone, like that's it for Malcolm, a Black race nationalist. Anyway, but yeah, but this idea that those of us who would be critical of this immutable white supremacy would not be aware, as has been argued in many different ways by many different people, that sure, you could even if you want to argue that the primary basis of or purpose of slavery was labor and the production of or mass accumulation of resources, whatever, the consequences of that still, for me, result in the same immutable white supremacy, whether the white supremacy was the cause of slavery or the response to slavery. At this point, the immutability of it is part of what comes out of, or is part of, that process. So that is demonstrable in data that can be supported by data, as well as, as immeasurable or immaterial variables, so to speak. So that,
So
and then
hold
the
on.
point I was saying when just real quick, when I asked everybody to listen, is Cigar's constant, like he's like the whole time you hear him like, oh, oh. And I'm like, look how happy this dude is. Like, you should know from jump what you're saying can't be right.
Dog already.
No,
But this is what I have a question here, Jared. I mean, so just from the
Yeah.
clip that you played, is Reed arguing that racism no longer exists in these institutions, or that the racism wasn't already baked into to any institution in America, right? Like, I mean, I don't see how even in 2022 that kind of argument can even be made when racism and race itself was codified in so many different ways, from laws to college admission to everything. Niggas, can you walk sundown towns? Like, I mean, racism has been baked into every single aspect of American culture and American life. So is he saying that that's done? That's over now, post Jim Crow?
One of the questions that I did want to start with was to ask him more or less this question. The book reads as if you are trying to talk to a white audience to tell them that racism has changed, evolved, gotten better, is not the same impact that it has always been, and that people have misunderstood even the way that racism played out in that historical moment of Jim Crow. Like, I'm not, so to the short answer to your question is, I'm not really clear what his argument is. I am only clear kind of what the vibe I am getting from it. So similar to that clip, when I read the book, the vibe is you're telling a white audience, because I don't feel like he's talking to black people, which is again my point about why, that being the platform where I'm seeing him, that. So I just wanted to ask him that. And if I'm wrong, he's definitely smart enough to clarify that. But that was the vibe I got. So I don't know that I understand everything he's saying, but the vibe I get is race wasn't,
What are the measurables? I mean, I'm just curious again, what is the basis on which he's making this argument? Like, is this a data-backed sort of thing? Is he using
No.
metrics of education, home ownership? I'm just throwing shit out there. I don't know what, you know what I'm saying? Like, is this, so this is not based on actual empirical data. This is, like you said, vibes. He's given us his vibes on how he feels racism is, or is it the state of racism, whether or not it's improved or gotten worse, whatever direction you think that might go in. In 2022, he's not basing this off anything. It's not based off levels of education, income, homeowners, like none of the usual shits that people base, I guess, success upon.
No, and that's why the interviewer, even in that segment that they do, asks him about this, is it or is it not a memoir? And technically it's not, but because when you're reading it, it's not an academic book. It's more or less sort of how he remembers and thinks about things, and interprets things. Yeah. So there's I'm just picking out one sentence here, so this might be unfair to him, but it's just, that I have highlighted. He says, I have never heard anything regarding Raquel, which doesn't mean that there were no such rumors about him. An effective hypo descent, the one drop rule, that one could appear as emphatically and unambiguously white as models. So my point is, that's what he's taught. Like, that's how he's like, this is what I've heard or what I've remembered, or this is how the one drop rule played out back then and it's playing out now. And there are these issues, the way he talks about, and this is why I'm saying I'm just not clear. Maybe I was reading it too fast. Maybe I'm just not whatever, but it's just like, it's just this that in other words, race and racism is more complicated than it's being made today so that people can hustle some checks. That's kind of that's sort of the vibe I'm getting. So that's why he goes on there, and Kendall not Kendall, Cigar and Jetty is sitting there, giggling through the whole answer he's giving, because he's so happy to be hearing somebody black with authenticity telling him what he has always wanted to hear on these segments, that those of us who would make an argument around what actual critical race theory is, or raise issues about white supremacy, he's not in. We're passé, and we're so again, when you start off with the 1619 Project being described as making this argument about race being fundamental to the origins and white supremacy being fundamental to the origins and development of the society, they're always like, no, that's not it. It's not that simple. There are other issues going on. There's other things happening. And sure, there is. Well, I mean, I think there are.
What else is happening
like
besides racism in every single African American society?
Gender, all of those things that they are saying play equal and different roles. Something I don't. Again, I'm not really. I don't pay enough attention to get the details of their argument, but essentially, they just don't want to hear that race is and continues to be an issue or has always been an issue. And that's what this book does sort of argue from a Black Southern perspective. He's saying what you all think you know about Jim Crow is fantasy and mythology. And that's why you think today what you think, and you're all wrong.
Oh my God. Hey, who published this shit? I'm about to Google. How much you get paid for this? Who published this book, Gerard?
Verso Books, and Verso is I believe is a well-respected publisher, and Reed is a well-respected. I mean, I've been reading Reed, for years, and I don't, again, even where we don't always agree, I've at least appreciated a lot of what he's had to say, but I just don't, I'm not clear what anyway, I'm just not clear what's going on here. So I was hoping to get clear in that conversation, but I'll continue to hope and hope on.
You as an academic, I think perhaps view this differently than I, because again, and you say that you respect his work, over, his body of work, etc. But when niggas start talking shit like that, like it's time from my perspective to discredit them niggas. Like stop listening to them niggas, stop putting value on what them niggas have to say, because them niggas are here to lead us astray. Them niggas are here to get on white-based media and perform in the way that you describe to give comfort to white people and non-white people of color who are anti-Black and racist, that, hey, no, the niggas are the problem here. It is not racism. It is not America. It's the niggas who are the problem here. And here is I, a nigga, here to reinforce that worldview that these liberals have already about Black people and our lack of alleged progress or success in this country. Like, it's time to stop giving credence to these niggas in their viewpoints, because that shit does not advance our liberation at all. It just reinforces what racist white folks already have preconceived in their minds. But you are academic, I'm a shit talking broadcaster. I can say whatever, but I know you value different perspectives. I do not. I can assure you, I do not.
Up to a point, and then I definitely see your point, and I could also see that I have a blind spot around the fact that he wrote one of the legendary takedowns of people like Dyson back in the day. So like I might be going a little bit too far. Hey. But again, that's why I'm saying, like, this book was disturbing, and that interview was disturbing. So anyway.
Yeah. But, no, I can appreciate, the value in a debate between Adolph Reed and Dr. Gerald Horne. Now, am I going to tune into any program just to hear Adolph Reed talk that bullshit? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's a better TikTok video set waiting for me instead of doing that. But I respect you, Jared, because, you bring to light the shit that these goofy niggas be talking about. And I guess to a certain extent, we need to know what these goofy niggas be talking about.
I suppose. I don't know. Maybe I just got caught up in my own little. I don't know.
It's all good.